Hey, my name is Cedric and I'm wearing a bunch of different hats in the ICP ecosystem. For one, I've been part of the team that helped build the Dfinity Foundation. I'm a node provider, meaning I run some of the servers that power the Dfinity or ICP network. I have a venture fund where I've invested in a number of companies that are building in the ICP ecosystem. And last but definitely not least, I am one of the founders of Code and State, the organization that's also behind ICPCC. And in the next few minutes, I want to tell you a bit about why I care so much about the IC ecosystem, and then also what Code and State is and whether or not you should maybe come join us at Code and State. So to take things back a bit, about 13 years ago in 2011 is when one of my colleagues at a Web2 startup borrowed my laptop over lunch to mine some Bitcoin. And that got me really curious. It led me to sit down on the weekend and start researching Bitcoin. And I went down the entire rabbit hole and found this technology just fascinating. The fact that we could now have a scarce digital asset, especially in a decentralized and trustless environment, just blew my mind back then, and I've never left the decentralized world ever since. For the first couple of years, I just got excited about Bitcoin and I looked into different use cases. Back then, very limited compared to today, and a lot of it was illicit, but it still sparked my curiosity and I kept following the developments in the decentralized world. Then of course, 2014, Ethereum was released and my mind was blown again. I thought it was fascinating, the fact that we could now not just only share tokens in a decentralized manner, but we could also add some logic and write these decentralized contracts with one another. Fast forward a couple of years and I meet Dom and he pitches me the idea for Dfinity, and I was immediately taken by not only his determination to make this a reality, it sounded very complex at the time, but also very excited about how this was not just another variation of Ethereum or Bitcoin, but something that was truly new and complementary to what's already out there. Before we dive deeper into the ICP ecosystem and what we're doing with Code and State, along the way of spending time with decentralized technologies, of course, I sat down many times and I thought about what is it that's going to happen with this? Why do I care so much about decentralization? And the answer that I found for myself is, I think the qualities that we get from decentralized technology are so powerful and so positive that we want to apply them to not just this very limited use case of decentralized finance or sending tokens from one person to the other, but that we want to try and scale them across all industries and all use cases in our lives. So what I mean is decentralized technology enables us to have a trustless environment. It enables immutability. It enables transparency on a different level. I could go on and on about these qualities, but what's very clear to me is that we not only want to apply these to finance, we want to find ways to make our governance system more transparent. We want to find ways to make records in our educational systems more immutable. And we want to find ways to make interaction with, let's say, our healthcare system more trustless. And that's really what's put me on this journey for the past almost 15 years now, where I've tried to innovate and find ways to bring decentralized technology and their qualities into our daily lives. So I've already mentioned that I'm wearing a bunch of different hats in the ICP ecosystem, and I'm very passionate about all of those. But then the most important role I took on about 2 years ago. Artia, who used to be COO at the Dfinity Foundation, and I met again I think it was in LA. We sat down at a cafe and we talked about the state of the ecosystem. And we were both in agreement that the internet computer is this incredibly powerful and smart machine. And at the same time, our ecosystem hadn't taken off the same way we saw with other seemingly much less complex pieces of technology. We sat down and we started talking about, A, what's causing this? What's the root of this? And second, more importantly, because we're both entrepreneurs, what can we do to change this? And the answer for us seemed pretty clear. If we can create a company, a structure, a place that entrepreneurs can come to and they can solve these problems, then not only would we not have to solve these by ourselves with our limited resources, but we could hopefully scale ourselves 100x. Now, we're not the first people to come up with this idea and to invent this model, but it's been done both in Web 2 and Web 3. In Web 3, the most prominent player that uses a similar model as Code and State is probably Consensus. It's the organization in the Ethereum ecosystem started by one of the co-founders of Ethereum, Joe Lubin, that has incorporated not just MetaMask and Infura, but hundreds of different apps in the ecosystem and probably spurred a lot of the activity that we've seen in the last 10 years. The vision for Code and State is incredibly simple. We want to make it easier to build and earn in the ICP ecosystem. Why do we want to make it easier to build? Well, because we think if it's easier to build, then not only 5, 10, dozens or hundreds of teams are going to build in the ICP ecosystem, but at some point thousands of teams. And if it's so easy to build and test an application within a weekend, within a summer break, then it becomes much more likely that we're going to find killer applications that leverage Ethereum, Bitcoin, but also ICP and apply it in various areas like healthcare or governance systems. And we'll see the world improve because people use this novel technology to bring it to real life use cases. Second, why do we think it's very important that we make it easier to earn on the IC? Well, because not everything is a weekend project, right? So while it's great if you can sit down and give an idea a first try on a weekend or during a summer break, at some point for you to sustain your livelihood and build a team and create something truly powerful, there needs to be a very clear mechanism for how you can earn a salary and your livelihood within the ecosystem. So those are the two key components. Make it easier to build and make it easier to earn on the ICP ecosystem. Our mission is to create an accelerator and incubator. What does that mean? Well, accelerator meaning if you already are working on an idea that helps these two causes, making it easier to build or earn, you should be able to come to Code and State and get value and resources from us that allow you to accelerate on your journey to go quicker to where you want to go. An incubator means even if you don't clearly have the idea yet, Code and State should be the place that you come to and you find an environment that is so nurturing that you find your idea, you find your teammates, you maybe even find your first customers, and you sit down and you start building. The way we do this, both on the accelerator and the incubator side, is by helping you with lots of resources that are not monetary. Yes, money is hard to come by, but there's also lots of other resources that are even harder to come by, especially in the Web3 world, where a lot of the questions just aren't answered yet. How should you set up your company? How do you do marketing for Web3? How do you hire your team members that may be sitting in 5 different jurisdictions? How do you design good tokenomics? How much of your token supply should go to the team versus your investors, and so on? There's lots of questions, and at Code and State we've assembled a very dedicated, agile team that help you with all those areas, so you as an entrepreneur can fully focus on your idea and accelerating that one towards a public launch and bringing it into the world. How does Code and State profit from this, and how do we finance ourselves? Well, the idea behind Code and State is to be a great alternative to pre-seed funding. Normally, if you're building a venture, it means you go out, you look for investors, you raise your pre-seed round, and you give up some shares. The idea with Code and State is extremely similar. So in return for receiving money to finance your operations for the first 12 to 24 months, as well as for getting insight into all these different topics and getting access to the entire Code and State team and beyond, we also take a cut in your venture or your token once you launch later on. So far, what are some of the ventures that have either gone through the acceleration or incubation process with Code and State? 18 months ago, it was very hard to build on the IC. Even if you figured out how to build on the IC, it was hard to get a job. Even if you got a job and were building something, it was hard to get a clear sense of how secure it is what you've built. And last but not least, there was not really a good place to share what you've built and connect with others. So we've worked on all these challenges, and we've built Motoko Bootcamp, which is a 1-week course and now also a self-study course where you can go from knowing nothing about the IC to not only knowing how to build on the IC, but also deploying your first DAO live on the IC within just 1 week. Second, we've created TalentDB. TalentDB is a place where either you as a venture go to and you can scale your operations by hiring great talent that is assessed and has gone through a rigorous interview flow. But it's also the place for you as a builder to go and say, hey, I am ready to jump into this full time. I'm looking for a role. And Ben, who leads TalentDB, does a great job matching those two sides together. Once you are building at a startup or at a venture and you're getting ready to share your product with the world, you want to make sure that what you are about to release is safe. Because very often bugs can not only just mean downtime or someone has a slightly worse user experience than what they're used to, but it can mean actual financial loss. And so it's extremely important that you have experts you can rely on to review your code and point out any potential vulnerabilities before you go live. We've created Solid State, which does exactly that. It connects you with auditors and it puts your code and product through a rigorous testing and analysis process to make sure it's safe and secure before it's being released, and you can sleep well knowing that what you're putting out into the world doesn't have any bugs in it. And last but not least, the event you're watching right now, ICPCC, we created an in-person event last year to give a big stage to those that have been building in the ecosystem for a long time, but potentially have never met their counterparties in the real world. And this year we are focusing the event on sharing everything that we've learned about the IC with not just the ICP ecosystem, but anyone in Web3. So hopefully you're making some really good friends this weekend. Hopefully you're learning about the IC. I'm sure you will come up with lots of questions. Feel free to talk to any of us at Code and State if you're just curious about ICP or the internet computer, but also if you have an idea for how to make it easier to build or earn. I can't wait to speak to you. Have a beautiful day, and we'll talk soon.